Welcome to the Anxious Voyage. If you think that title sounds bleak or foreboding, one of two things must be true. You're very lucky, or you need to get out more. On this program, we share stories of life and living. We compare notes. We discover commonalities. We accept that life is a glorious, heartbreaking thing, and we embrace and celebrate all of it. Take the ride with us. We're glad you're here. Now, here's your host, Mark O'Brien.
Hello from wherever you are, and welcome to the Anxious Voyage. We are coming to you once again, and as always, from world headquarters in beautiful Middletown, Connecticut, birthplace, as most of you know, of medicine ball hockey. We might do a show on that at some point. I'm always happy to welcome my guests. I am really happy today to introduce my guest and my friend, the unbelievably talented artist, Tao LaBossiere. So Tao, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm glad to be here. I'm curious about how it's going to go.
You know, we've known each other for a while. You are married to Amy, of course, whom I've known for, close to 25 years. Good thing I'm sitting down when I say that. But nevertheless, you and I have never really had the opportunity to simply talk about what you do. And I'm going to get into some of the places where your work can be seen and your website address and all that stuff a little bit later on. But I'm curious to know when you may have first noticed your artistic inclinations. Were you really young?
Absolutely. I attribute my desire to create to positive reinforcement by my mother back as early as kindergarten, nursery school, actually, when I first began finger painting, and she would be so encouraging and she would give me so much love that's literally the reason I created, was to get her positive responses. And to this day, when I'm creating artwork, I think there's part of that within me, that I'm looking for the love of my mother, looking for the acceptance and love of my community and friends. But it's also something that the creativity, it flows regardless if I'm actively thinking about that or not. Once I turn on the switch, I just enjoy the creative flow.
And I would imagine to whatever extent sort of get lost in it. And I ask that question specifically because I tell people that writing is the closest I'm ever going to get to meditation, because I can just lose myself.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you want me to talk about being in the moment of creativity for just a second. I find it very hard to motivate myself to get to that point. But sometimes when I just sit down and start to do it, within 10 minutes, almost inevitably, I will find that motivation, because I will be problem solving on the canvas or the illustration. And that's the way I think about art. It's creative problem solving. And once I start looking for those answers for myself, I'm fully into it. And then I can open myself up to how I think of it as receiving the creative inspiration from the universe, because I find it very difficult to think that all of those creative ideas actually come from within me, because where does a new idea come from? You know, I mean, how can I have a new idea? I'm a product of all my experiences. I don't really know, but once I start creating and I'm in the flow, I lose a sense of time, just like you talked about, and it's a wonderful experience. I think we all have the ability to do that.
I think you're right too. I think we have to be open to it. I think we have to be receptive to it. Given what you said, that sometimes you're not exactly sure what you're going to do or how you're going to express something. And we were talking a little bit before we went live about age and getting older. Do you find as you get older that you put less pressure on yourself to be creative?
Oh, I think perhaps in the sense that, I don't know if we can use expletives, but I don't care about as much of what other people think of the work. So if I'm not giving two thoughts about what other people are thinking, um, it does allow a little bit more room for me to breathe creatively.
Mm.
It's not that I'm not affected by what other people are thinking, because it's, one of my foundational reasons for creating. But I do think I can create, not in a formula, but there are certain things that I do to start the creative process, and um, not caring about what other people think is something I have to remind myself to do. But when I do it, I think it helps with the flow.
Well, I would say, for whatever this is worth, your work is anything at all but formulaic. The reason that I ask the question is, um, I find as I get older that I don't put as much pressure on myself, so I don't disappoint myself. And what I mean is, it makes me more patient. So if I want to do something and I'm not struck immediately by what that is, I don't get as anxious about that as I used to when I was younger. And I also think that what you just said about, as you get older, caring less about what people think, I took that to be a matter of degree anyway, because of what you said earlier about getting the approval of others. Um, Honestly, I don't believe that ever goes away.
Great. Yeah.
It's just so tempting to say, well, I don't care. I don't care what he thinks. I don't care what she said. Well, yeah, you do.
We all do.
Yeah. And if there's any way to bridge gaps like that, I think most of us at least take a crack at doing that and seeing if we can't find some middle ground, some place to meet, some way to communicate.
Well, if you're talking about communicating through my creativity, my art, um, I don't always know how my finished product is going to turn out. And I don't always know if people are going to enjoy it or like it. That's why I have to pull back from thinking about what they're going to thinking of the finished product, because if I don't stay in myself and focus on my own creativity, on who I am, on what I love, if I can get those down on the canvas or into the drawing or into the sculpture, um, without thinking about that noise, the piece will automatically take shape, and it will be something that's more true to who I am as a person. And that itself may resonate with people, rather than me trying to contrive something that fits what I think their expectations are.
Um, you said earlier that we all are the product of everything that we've done and learned to date. Um, I don't know that that leaves room for inspiration. And I think what comes through when we're inspired are those elements of ourselves. Henry Miller referred to it as the miracle of personality. And I don't know what you think about this, but I always think when I'm writing that if the product of my writing somehow reflects my personality, then I've done it right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I was trying to say, that when I'm creating, I have to make sure to keep refocusing on what I want to say from within, what I know. Like I hear for writers, it's write what you know about. For artists, it's probably the same thing. Create from what I know about, from experience. In the end, if I can translate some of my experiences that have become part of my personality, perhaps that have helped shape me as a person, if I can somehow translate truly what those feelings or characteristics are into interpreting something that we see every day, and somehow that image is shown in a new way, a new perspective from my perspective. And if I do it authentically, hopefully the style that develops is really me, because it's coming from me. And that will become a recognizable Tao. I have always struggled with finding my style, because I've always enjoyed creating in whatever medium that's before me. I see every object, practically every material, as a potential medium for creativity. And I love the challenge of figuring out, okay, how are we going to chainsaw this into a sculpture? How am I going to use this concrete? How am I going to use fiberglass? How am I going to use this drawing material or this paper? And there are so many types of paper. There are so many types of wood. There are so many types of tape and glue and hardware that can be used creatively. It can all be used creatively. So I get caught up in that until I sort of master, for lack of a better word, until I become adept at that process. It has me. Once I feel like I've kind of know what I'm doing, then I think I start to wander and find some new material, which is not really, what I hear, conducive to being a successful, recognizable artist if you're constantly working in different materials and going from being a novice to someone who's mostly capable at it. But I don't ever have a body of work that's enormous in one particular material.
Wow. I never thought about it this way before, but it seems to me, based on what you just said, there is a balance to be struck between wanting to satisfy your own creativity and perhaps, I'm really, really hesitant about this, perhaps being a little bit predictable, because it seems to be recognized in some particular niche or medium. You have to be predictable about that.
I think that's partly what I resist about once I've become competent at a medium. I don't ever want to think of myself as a master artist, really, because I'm always learning. I'm always learning something. But once I become fairly competent at a particular material, I start to feel that the work is predictable, and I don't want to be predictable. I would like to have a new perspective. That's part of the job that I see an artist job is showing my perspective of life. So even all common objects, common experiences, but showing my perspective, whether it's, two-dimensional or three-dimensional, showing the world how I see certain experiences. And through that, if they can stop long enough to take a look at my artwork because it resonates with them, or it resonates with them because it compels them to stop long enough to enjoy it. Most people, I believe, spend 2 or 3 seconds on artwork. That's basically the appetite for art. But those who are compelled to look deeper and start to understand the elements that they're looking at, whether it's representational imagery, whether it's the color, the values that create the mood, maybe there's some sort of messaging, metaphoric, allegory, which I enjoy all of those. when people start to see that and find the deeper meanings, that's when I think I've helped translate some of my perspective to them, perhaps, and maybe they'll see the world in a little bit the way I see it. And most of my artwork, I try to have the lasting feeling of the work be that they just saw a work of art that moved them. They were very, they felt very connected to me as perhaps a human being, but what they're connecting to is the fact that I'm just a human being, and I created this work of art, this large mural or whatever it may be, or sculpture, and perhaps they can somehow sense that the creativity that I invested into that, the hard work that I invested into that, is something that I think most people are capable of. I'm literally trying to inspire others to be creative when I create my work. I want that to be one of the messages, because I don't know really, other than creating something that we're leaving for the universe. I mean, I don't have children, so for me, what do I create that I can leave behind as a legacy, or any type of influence on the world, or even just my neighborhood or my friends? What am I going to leave behind? What's the lasting impression going to be of Tao? Is it going to be that guy was a jerk, or that guy did something? He was selfish, or he was selfless. I mean, of course, I aspire to do morally good things in the world, but ultimately, I think that I need to be creative. And that creativity, if I'm just coming from that creativity, which is basically almost love to me, that I'm caring enough about the work and caring enough about people's experience of it, that somehow they feel that. Somehow they feel the inspiration, the love, the caring, and perhaps they want to do some of that themselves. Spread the love. Sounds trite, but I mean, that's literally what a lot of my artwork is about. It's trying to connect people through common experiences, and I'm trying to grab their attention creatively, but then give them a common message.
Yeah. I actually, in the next segment, I sort of want to go into that, what you're saying, and connecting some things you said earlier, problem solving and expression. And I want to connect that to responsibility. But I want to jump all the way back to the very beginning when we were talking about, when you noticed your artistic inclinations, and you did it because your mother was loving and encouraging, which is just such an incredibly beautiful thing. When did you know that you wanted to make your living as an artist? And did you have any other competing interests or other things that you thought you should do or thought someone else expected you to do?
I'm very fortunate in the sense that both my parents um, existed creatively to some degree in their life. My mother has always enjoyed ceramics, and some watercolor painting and some acrylic painting. My father enjoyed sculpting a little bit in concrete, and he was an actor. And I think he once said to me when I was about 10 years old, he said, Tao, he's like, being a creative person allows you to cross all sorts of social class boundaries. He's like, there are people worth millions of dollars that own these enormous companies that will not be able to create the same way you can. You may be welcome to pass through the doors of those exclusive halls because you have something that they do not have, which is your creativity. So he was able to do it as an actor, be invited to I don't know, high-end parties with wealthy or political people. I know that for myself, I sometimes experience that. I was recently at the governor's um, uh, inaugural reception and ball, and as an artist, and I don't really socialize with powerful political people, but it's nice to be acknowledged that I sort of, I do exist, and that what I represent in my life is valid. And yeah, but being able to cross social boundaries was something that he wanted to impress upon me. I didn't know what the heck it meant at 10 years old, only later in life. What else?
Did,
What else, Chad?
did you, and this will be the last question before
Okay.
our first break, but when your dad shared that with you, did you recognize that as a gift?
No, not at the moment. I recognized his intention,
Mm,
that he was giving me a very particular type of fatherly love.
mm,
His secret advice that he knew from the inside of being an actor. Um, but it didn't really register until, I don't know, I'd be at social events that I felt very uncomfortable at. I didn't fit in, but someone would say, "Hey, that was an artist." Suddenly there was something to talk about.
mm-hmm.
And it wasn't how much do you know about politics or money. So yeah, I could relate on an individual level to people. That was
All
great.
right. And whatever it's worth to you, I'm going to vote for you. What if you develop an interest in politics? All right. This is a perfect spot to take our first break.
Okay.
We will be back in about 3 minutes, so keep it where it is.
Okay.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
Ever wonder what it's like to have your own radio show? Well, wonder no longer, because you can dip into the radio airwaves by being host for the day on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. It's a fabulous way to get your radio feet wet. It's an opportunity to market your business, modality, or book. Have a guest, mention a sponsor, and take callers. Or you may want to facilitate a lesson by going solo. It's up to you. Listeners can be online, mobile, in cars with Bluetooth, or listen through Amazon's Echo by asking, "Alexa, play Dream Vision 7 Radio Network." For more details, go to dreamvision7radio.com and click on Host for the Day.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brand's distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com, or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back to the show. Now I kind of feel like I have a fireworks display going off in my head at the moment because you've given me so many things to think about. So I'm going to take a crack at connecting some dots here.
Sure.
You talked about approaching your work as a matter of problem solving. And I'm going to interpret that at two levels. One is solve the problem of how you're going to use whatever medium you're working in to express what you want to express. And the other way I view it is that the work expresses your take on a particular problem, whether it's social or environmental. All of your work, it seems to me, has those bigger causes reflected in them. Is that a fair way to think about your work?
Sure. I'm glad you can think of it that way, because it means that you're understanding not only my work, but what a lot of artists are trying to do, which is share their perspective of the world. So for problem solving, you're right, there are several different levels. The first way I usually use that artist problem solving is in the physical sense of how do I get this medium to work effectively to create something, whether it's abstract or impressionistic or realistic. How do I get that paint or that wood or that metal to do that? And we'll take paint, for example, on a mural. I'm looking out the window at downtown Hartford right now, and I'm looking at one of my murals. And I'll describe it. It's a 6-story tall painting of a painted turtle, a baby painted turtle in a freshwater pond with freshwater pond lilies that it's swimming up from the bottom of the darkness and going towards the light. There are ripples of water, there are lots of bubbles, and it's a very calm, peaceful scene. So when I'm making something like that, the first brushstrokes that I put down, the second brushstroke has to enhance the first brushstroke. It has to make it better. And then the third has to do its job for the first two. And the further I go into it, the more complicated it becomes. But all of the work, everything that I'm laying into that work, whether it's line, color, light, dark, all of those things need to, for an effective work of art, in my opinion, they need to solve the problem of helping each other work as a whole to create effective imagery. And so that's how, technically I go about creating a painting or a mural. And where the artwork has meaning to me, the problem that I'm trying to solve with each piece is different. For the most part, I'll just say real quick, I've learned to love art through my mother with finger painting, and through my dad when he would sit and read children's books to me as bedtime stories. And he would read Grimm's fairy tales, the Illustrated Bible, Maurice Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are, Dr. Seuss, poems of Robert Frost, and he would love it. And I felt very loved when he was doing that. So I combined the the validation of love from my mother through creating with that good time with my father of listening to children's stories. And that kind of narrative really has stuck with me. And so for a lot of my work, it very well could be like a giant children's book illustration. And so the way I'm drawing and painting, I try to do it from the perspective of that positive experience I felt, which I took to be through my formative years as a kid and through children's book illustration. So, when you're creating a children's book illustration, you have to convey maybe much deeper, meaningful things in a way that's gentle. Could be full of joy and care. So you're caring about your audience as if they're children. And I treat adults as children because we all have inner children. We're all still children. We can put ourselves in the moment of joy, once in a while if we're lucky, and laugh and kick the water. But so what I'm trying to get at is that a lot of especially my illustrative and painting work is sort of like a children's book. And I fought that for a long time because I thought I needed to be a fine artist, but I think that really it's me doing the fine art of conveying image and thought and ideas through children's book, not style, but sort of an emotion, sort of an innocence that people can discover something within it. So that mural that I'm looking out the window with the giant baby painted turtle, it's a metaphor. But it's also for my city here, Hartford. Big little city. It's got its own issues and struggles. So that turtle represents me as an artist. It can also represent Hartford as it's evolving. There's a family of turtles in the local park here. But really what that image comes from is when I was a kid, and my dad, as much as he loved me, he was a rageaholic. And he would fly off the handle when I wasn't producing enough work, working constantly. We had a retreat center, a resort. And so there was always a lot to do when you have 60 guests coming that weekend. Anyway, so my dad would take his frustrations out on me. I was the oldest, I was the boy. And sometimes he'd smack me around or do other things that were really, I just couldn't understand as a kid. So I would go and dive into our pond. We had a beautiful 12-acre pond. And I would dive into the pond, freshwater pond, and hold my breath as long as I could. I'd sink to the bottom of the pond and I'd look up, and what I was doing was hiding from my father. And in that process, the tension, the anxiety, the rage would dissipate into the water around me, and it would be replaced by total serenity and peace. And that relief that came from Mother Nature, I realized much later in life, it was my first spiritual experience to feel that connected and to know that everything was going to be okay. And I was holding my breath for as long as I could, being with the turtles underwater. And so that's what that turtle symbolizes, because I saw the turtles like that all the time, and the lily pads. And so that's, for me, it's a spiritual painting. It's about being in my own private space. We're all individuals. We come into this world alone, we leave alone. We are unto ourselves, I think. But so that hopefully connects with people that walk by, where maybe they feel the isolation, but in a reassuring way. The colors that I use, the fade from the dark to light coming up from the darkness, a little bit scary at the bottom because it's dark, but not enough to make anybody get upset about it. Going towards the light is pretty obvious. And the bubbles are happy and sparkly like soda. So it's just something I really enjoy doing, is including my own spirituality or my own philosophy about life into my work, and trying to get the audience to see the world and understand me through my perspective. And really, it's not just about me, even though a lot of it is. It's about seeing the perspective of others, period. I think we're all caught up in this whole self-righteous, my belief is what's, going on here. Everything from, religion to politics to just daily life. We're so caught up in thinking that our perspective has to be the right way because we don't want to feel like a fool. We've made the wrong, decisions. We're too afraid to apologize and retreat a little bit and connect at the middle with other people. This is literally almost a childish way to remind ourselves that there are other perspectives and that we can see each other through different light. And perhaps if people can see spirituality through this perspective, which I don't know that a lot of people would, they'll look at a crucifix or something very religious. But this is not religious, it's spiritual. And hopefully if people can somehow get some sense of that, maybe I've done my job as an artist to get them to stop for a moment and see the world from a different perspective.
First of all, I didn't know until right this moment that our experiences with our fathers were so similar. So all I can tell you is I know exactly what you mean. I don't want to let this moment pass without letting our listeners know that one of your illustrations, The Last Supper on the African Safari, inspired my children's book, The One and Only Ben.
Yes.
And what you just explained to me about your dad and about the pond and your escape and how that translates into the turtle, that helps me understand the expression on the lion's face in your illustration and it's called The Last Supper on the African Safari. I don't think it's on your website. I wish it were. And I also want to let everybody know that to understand and to see what you're referring to, they should go to artoftaolabossiere.com, and that mural on that building, what is it, 5 stories tall or something?
It's 65 feet.
Okay. It's amazing and mind-bending and worth at least a trip to Tao's website. This feels like a really good transition point for me. I do want to jump back to what we were talking about because very near the end of your last comments, you used the word childish. And I would like to suggest that it's childlike.
Oh,
and I would like to agree with you that we can, I don't know if I should say experience or re-experience, all those childlike senses of joy and innocence and wonder and curiosity. We just have to choose to do it. And we also have to be, and maybe this is related to, the notion that we don't care what people think about us, but we have to be willing to do that, even if other folks might think, well, that's kind of weird, or that's kind of adolescent, or, that's not terribly mature or something like that.
I think that even though I'm trying to do that with my visual art, I think the most common way that I can think of that people experience that is if they're watching their grandchildren, and they see their grandchildren or their children innocent. They're absolutely innocent, and they're doing things that are exploratory, and we find it silly. We find it hilarious because we've already learned about the world and we've become a little bit jaded. And not only are we laughing at the innocence of the child, but we're laughing at ourselves, at our own stupidity for becoming so rigid in our thinking that couldn't be something that we do.
I'm going to share a very brief story with you about that very notion when we come back. So let's do this second break, and we'll come back and pick this up in the final segment, and we'll see you in 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the quantum age?
Humanity's next step in evolution?
Dream Vision 7 Radio Network invites you to the extraordinary platform of evolutionary voices for the quantum age.
Let's explore. Learn more about this upcoming age where we bridge science with spirituality.
Where potentiality meets reality.
Where we take compassion into action.
Our trailblazers and visionaries will ask the whys, the what ifs, while igniting continuous possibility.
Come along with us into an age beyond what we know today, where we can grow together in unity consciousness.
Experience evolutionary voices for the quantum age, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern on DreamVision7Radio.com.
You can't establish your brand's authority without a voice. That's why, since 2004, O'Brien Communications Group, OCG, has been helping companies establish their authority, find their brand's distinct voices, and position their brands effectively and persuasively. So effectively that 9 of OCG's clients have been acquired by other companies. OCG's business model emphasizes efficiency and results, not hourly billing, markups, and media commissions. That ensures OCG's advice is unbiased and its clients aren't at financial risk. If you're ready to find your voice and use it to tell your story, OCG is ready to help. You can find O'Brien Communications Group on the web at o'briencg.com. That's OBRIENCG.com or call 860-944-9022.
Calling all authors. Have you been considering an audiobook? Well, look no further. Come take advantage of Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's unique in-house audiobook production, which includes benefits and bonuses from our radio station. Let our knowledgeable staff guide you to create the audiobook you've always dreamed of without breaking the bank. Check out our full one-stop service from A to Z, including the ACX process. Schedule a free consultation by calling 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or go to dreamvision7radio.com.
Everybody has a story. Everyone's story deserves to be told, and the only bad stories are the ones we don't share. That's why Mark O'Brien created The Anxious Voyage. It's Mark's conviction that every story deserves to be shared, and his purpose is to give people in all walks of life, from any circumstances, a chance to tell their stories. The Anxious Voyage is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 Radio Network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Please tune in, please join Mark, and please share your stories.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
Welcome back.
Good to be back.
So I threatened to tell you a quick story when we came back. A couple of years ago, because you mentioned grandchildren, I had occasion to go to North Carolina to babysit for 2 of my grandchildren. And we had taken my grandson Evan to a birthday party with some of his buddies. And Maya, his sister, and I came back to the house, and she was just wearing like a little jersey and some warm-up pants. But she asked me to come up to her room. I think she was 6 at the time. She turned the light on in her closet, went into the closet and closed the door. Came back out with this white dress that had red flowers on it. And as she came out of the closet, she walked toward her little nightstand and said, "Alexa, play Disney music." And that Alexa started playing Disney songs, and Maya sang and danced. And I sat on her bed and absolutely melted. But I felt the same senses and emotion that I felt when you were describing your inclinations in trying to produce the work that you produce. And I wonder, I never would have equated these two things, but when when you create, do you recognize that you are using those childlike senses to fulfill a very adult responsibility to communicate things?
Absolutely.
I would never, ever have thought of that if it weren't for this conversation. I
I
love
mean,
that.
this is where we all begin, I think, is in our formative years. And for me, that's how impactful children's book illustration was to me. It was told stories. My father and I were interacting in a loving way. And so because I have those formative experiences that helped shape who I am as a human being now, as an adult, I do believe that we can still learn, or that we may be more secretly open to learning through a child's eyes or through a childlike understanding. Becomes very basic, I mean, it's not too hard to understand certain things when a kid does it and it's obvious and it's humorous and you're like, oh right, stoves are hot. But or it's good to be kind, those two kids love each other. They look different, but they love each other. So there are things that I do want to communicate through my artwork. There always is. I don't know if any art can exist in a vacuum. And if it does, then it's not really art because it's not saying anything. So anyway, my point is that to answer your question, I take it as a great personal responsibility, especially with public art, that it has to be of service to my community that sees it. And now my community is the world online, which is crazy. But ultimately, I don't believe that seeing my art on my website or on Facebook, it may be nice, but it does not have the impact of standing in front of an actual work of art and seeing the brush strokes that were created by another human being, understanding, oh, that wasn't just a blue. That's like 30 different brush strokes of different colors to create that blue. So yeah, I hope I'm not getting sidetracked, but I do think that the responsibility of the artist is to communicate something effectively. In my opinion, it's generally their own authentic selves, so that people can see and share their perspective, so that we can all get used to sharing each other's perspective, see the world through other people's eyes, and therefore hopefully get along a little bit better. But I don't know if that's idealistic or naive, but I really would like it if we didn't have so much conflict in the world.
Well, yeah. Would you, two questions. Would you, if it's idealistic and naive, would you give that up for anything?
No.
No, I wouldn't either. And I want to pick up on what you said about public art. You know that Anne, my wife, is a painter, and we were having a conversation yesterday about the difference, if there is one, between commercial art and fine art. And you just used the term public art. Do we need those distinctions for anything? I mean, when we do.
Yeah.
Okay, please enlighten me, because when I look at that building with that seascape you did and the turtle, I'm not thinking about distinctions at all. I'm thinking about what I have the opportunity to perceive thanks to you.
Well, when you look at my mural with the turtle, you're not thinking you need to go buy Hartford health insurance.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You're not thinking about going out to get some, I don't know, sunglasses or whatever consumer product that most large images, that's their job. And that's the reason they exist, is because there's money that had to be spent on to create that image. And that money comes from a source. And it's got to, support several different people, from the suppliers of the paint to the insurance company that always overcharges the artist. Just to let you know, to do a mural like that costs a lot of money, with insurance, with the cost of a rental lift, with the cost of the paint, thousands in paint. thousands in insurance, thousands for the lift just for a week, like a lot. So at the end of the day, the artist's compensation for their contribution to the world is only the leftover at the bottom after all of the other necessities are taken care of, which I may be saying in a voice of complaint, but I want people to understand that when you hear that there's a mural that's $10,000 or $20,000, more than likely that I may be only getting less than 10% of that, maybe 15 if I'm lucky. So it's not like I'm making hay. I mean, sure, there are artists that are the exception and they're idealized, that they get hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but I'm not that person yet. And I don't know that I would want to be. But anyways, to get back to your point, the murals that I've always done traditionally have been commercial in the sense that I was supporting Bear's Barbecue. And I got a chance to be expressive on the wall, but the artwork itself was intended and had a mission to support as a creative branding branch of that business, which is something I've enjoyed doing. And I will still continue to probably do that for as long as it's paying well. And I haven't been able to succeed on my own. And the difference is that with a work of art that comes from within and appears on the wall, like I was very lucky with that turtle mural, which is actually the title of it is the oneness of being in still waters. And it's about being one with the still waters. The last name Still Waters refers to the family property that we used to own, but we lost during COVID. So it's kind of a tribute. Anyway, got off track there because that's emotional to me. But you want to rephrase the question again?
Actually, no, because you've convinced me, and there's no off track on this program.
I'm sorry. Just to get back to the commercial versus, I feel like the legitimate art in the world, like we were talking about before, is completely inspired by the inner experiences of the artist, and is their voice, their expression of how they interpret the world around them, and it offers the viewer something to see that simply is a different perspective on the life experience that we're all sharing, versus, now I'm compelled to go buy something. That's it. It's very simple. And sometimes even when murals aren't clearly commercial, they usually have an agenda. A lot of public art programs want to promote a certain, image of a city or organization, and there are parameters. There are usually definitions of where this mural has to fall in between. And, creative artists will try to work within that, but they automatically have guardrails that they have to stay in between. At the end, it clearly fulfills the mission of their the commission committee. And so those I find, I'm very grateful for those that they exist, but I find them very difficult to work within the limits because something within me resists the fact that I'm not allowed to just create something that's more spiritual or more humorous or more funny or silly. And but I do it because I need to make a living and because I don't mind working with people who need a creative hand to express their ideas. But not every committee that wants to have a work of art understands what that means. And it's usually when there's an agenda of even the most wonderful in nature, like diversity and connection and peace, the images in that, the committees usually think they have to sell that idea directly. Like when you look at it, you have to understand that. Where I believe that you can have something that is that addresses diversity and community and has an uplifting spirit through an image such as a flying saucer that smashed into the side of the building. And the reason it does that is because an image like that is so preposterous that it becomes humorous on many levels. And the fact that this advanced race was stupid enough to smash into a building, and that it happened here in Hartford, and that that the city had enough belief in this work to invest in it and make a work of art exist that they have no idea if it's going to work or not. That's when you can do that, and when you can when your clients can have faith in you that you're going to create something that will work. That's where you're getting to a point of success as a creative person. But until then, we all have to do, we all have to work.
Okay, so picking up on work and knowing that we are out of time. I can't believe this already.
Are you kidding me?
Please, I know you have some shows coming up. Please tell us about those. And I've already mentioned your website, which is artoftaolabossiere.com. But if there are other places where people can find you and your work, please share those too.
Sure.
Let's start with the shows.
Okay, so my wife and I, we volunteer our time to run Hartford ArtSpace Gallery here in Hartford. It's right diagonally across the street from the train and bus station, Union Station. It's on the first floor. It's 3,500 square feet, 15-foot ceilings, great exhibit space. I've been volunteering to run it for 27 years. We don't receive any pay. We take no commission. Anyway, so the next show is called Unart. Not very creative in its name, but it's supposed to make you think about the fact that it's uncurated, it's uncensored, it's unjuried, it's unthemed. It allows both professional artists and people who have never created before to submit work to a show. And I think it's highly successful in the sense that, yes, the professional artists give the show some validity and legitimacy as being an art exhibit. But the people I love the most in that process are the ones who are showing for the very first time. And when they come in, they're scared to submit their work. They haven't wired it properly. You have to talk them through things, which is fine. But they come to the show and they stand back and I will get people to just stand back, stay here and watch people react to your artwork. And don't take anything personally, just listen to what they say. And it's important that they do that, because if the people are actually reacting rather than just wandering by, that's the most important. Even if they're like hating on it, it's okay, because it's eliciting some sort of response. And I try to get them to understand that. Anyway, real quick, one of my favorite experiences like that was a woman who was showing for the very first time. She asked me, how much should I list this work for, this painting? And she's like, I have $1,100. And all I could think was, whoa, I wish I could get $1,100 right now for one of my artworks in here. I didn't think she was anywhere in the ballpark, but that was my own opinion. Turns out a woman bought the painting from her for $1,100.
Wow.
And when she came over, the artist came over, she started shaking and breathing heavy, and she had ran out of the room, went to the women's room, and she vomited from anxiety. And she came back and she said, she told people what happened. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to make a living as an artist, but I'm going to be an artist for the rest of my life. That's why I do the community gallery volunteer work. So that next show is Unart. Number 6. It's going to be on February 10th.
Okay. At
Hartford ArtSpace Gallery,
okay,
which is 555 Asylum Avenue in Hartford, diagonally across from Union Station, right by the on-ramp to 84 West.
Okay. And one more time for everybody who's here, artoftaolabossiere.com. Please do go look at look at Tao's work. And please touch base with him if you're so inclined. Tao, I am so grateful to you for your willingness to be here with me today. I'm so grateful for your friendship. And I have a feeling we're going to need to do this again.
Yeah, I still have a lot more to talk about. I can't even believe it.
All right. Then you'll be back. And I will also say to our listening and viewing audience, thank you for being here.
Yes,
I will be back live at 1 p.m. next Monday. See you then.
Take care.
Thank you.
Go make your art.
Thank you for tuning into The Anxious Voyage, the program dedicated to sharing stories, helping people, and celebrating life. You can see and listen to The Anxious Voyage on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Monday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with live broadcast every first and third Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you have a story to tell, or if you know someone who does, please email the host, Mark O'Brien, at mark@o'briencg.com. In the meantime, please remember, the only bad stories are the ones we don't share.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe.